You strong.
Alrighty, we're a good morning and a happy Thursday, January the 12th of 2022. Thank you for everyone for tuning in to another episode of the Throw-In. My name is Justin. If you guys are listening to us live on YouTube, want to thank you, welcome you guys, and hit that like, share, and subscribe button. If you guys are listening to us on Twitter, we appreciate you. Thank you guys for tuning in, making this morning, getting a chance to share ourselves and our knowledge this morning with you guys. Otherwise, if you guys are downloading us, taking us on the road, wherever you guys go, on whether that is on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spreaker, iHeartRadio, you name it. Thank you. Welcome. And it was pretty impactful last night. And you were not last night, but yesterday morning, and yesterday was fulfilled, with coverage. And I don't normally, I was saying this repeatedly yesterday, and I want to kind of reiterate everything that kind of transpired yesterday, because I told you guys yesterday morning that I hope that I was wrong. And I kind of take now a deep breath. I mean, I absolutely hate coming on here giving you wrong information. I'm giving you false information about any source, about any product. And when I do give you information, when I'm checking, the websites, I'm seeing, checking the resources that typically provide the information that is given. And yesterday, it was, over the last 48-hour span, we have witnessed a few things take place and unfold inside the world of professional wrestling, solely into the WWE. So about 36 hours ago, Stephanie McMahon, back on Tuesday, steps down as co-CEO and chairwoman of the WWE. And this is in the result of Vince McMahon stepping back and being named unanimously the executive board of director, chairman back in the WWE. So Stephanie McMahon has done her job over the last 8 months while Vince McMahon was dealing with his issues. And then you had, Stephanie McMahon, once Vince McMahon came back and decided to come back, or, the business decided to go elsewhere, this was an opportunity for Stephanie McMahon to take a step back and say, hey, there's a reason why I stepped away. There's a reason why I'm going to step away again. And no one can blame her, although, I was, been talking to a few people about the reactions, and not really a lot of people. Some people are surprised. Some people are upset, especially to see how the company has progressed and improved over the last 8 months. A lot of it's not solely on Stephanie McMahon. There's, Nick Khan involved. There's board of directors involved, and then you got Hunter down there in the creative team, working, getting the show produced. So she does her job. We thanked you yesterday. I thought, for me, that was the only breaking news coming out of the story in the world of WWE as of yesterday. And then I was checking, I have, social media popped up, and Sportscadia comes out yesterday morning all over all the social media platforms. You go Google it, and it's there. in the news, all the news that the WWE is in potentially underway with, selling the company to Saudi Arabia. Okay. Now, I don't, let me put it this way. We know when Vince McMahon came back last week, the purpose of Vince McMahon returning is to ensure that that the selling process runs smoothly. And what I mean by that, we knew this is good. This is a time that's going to come, regardless if you like it or not as a fan, where Vince McMahon, the WWE is going to inherit a new ownership. Okay, you haven't really seen much of Stephanie McMahon nor Shane McMahon, and I mean, as invested into wanting to inherit the company. And I think the only person out there that is anywhere close to relating that could possibly inherit the company would be Hunter, Triple H. But, I don't know if that was the right direction. I'm not, I think Triple H has been, Paul has been great in the creative team. He has definitely brought back a lot of great, a lot of talent that was well deserved, that shouldn't have never left to begin with. He is now allowing, athletes to kind of carve their own path of success. This whole forbidden door, allowing athletes to go off, and it's only time to tell if he allows, athletes to come back to the, come, from different promotions to the WWE. I would think that would be best for business at some point. But, WWE has been stuck in this whole old school mentality for so long that, it's not going to happen overnight. But, the we knew when Vince McMahon returned to the WWE that he addressed it, that this is solely to make sure that the WWE selling process runs smoothly. And back on Monday, we went over a couple options that are in, line for suggestions. Things like the NBC, Comcast, Fox, moving forward to who would be proper to, even Disney was included on who could be potential buyers of the WWE. I threw in a couple of favorites, more of an individual, such as Dwayne Johnson, and keep it in the family dynasty, maybe even Paul. But then yesterday morning, a new source, a new name coming out of from Sportscadia surfaced to the water, and that was Saudi Arabia. And I think for a moment there was a little bit of panic. For a moment there was a little bit of hesitation, because that broke, and it was like, all right, what the hell is going on? I mean, I never, to really think that not only someone else is going to own the company one day, but that someone else is someone that we really don't know much about. And, I think the panic button was hit a little bit. I mean, it was all blasting all over social media, at least throughout the morning. And I was coming on here, I was like, like I said, I take a lot of, pride in making sure I give you the correct information. I like to go through sources. I'm not just making up, this is a source that there's a few sources out there that each individual, this is what I've learned, is that each individual will go through sources and they will determine which one for them are more credible. Right. Through my experience doing, this program, this show, my sources go down to official websites and official, sources that just have a repetitive, that have built their credibility, such as PW Insider is for me a reliable source. Okay, that if you are hearing sources from PW Insider, either they're about to be true or they are true. They're very rarely that they're going to make mistakes. And, Sportscadia is also another source in my books that's on my list that I do go and double check before, announcing anything. Now, Sportscadia can be a little, how do I best put this? Sportscadia sometimes analyzes things and say in hypothetical, okay, the what if. But they're when they post things, they're very clear about, okay, this is the source, what sources say, and this is hypothetical, or this is actually really happening, or expect this potentially to happen, or this is an idea. Well, Sports Katie says, it's not finalized. They made this clear yesterday morning. It was not finalized, but they're that there was a principal writing. But they made it clear that until, Saudi Arabia or WWE came forth to the news and saying that this was an agreement, that this is just a source of a rumor. And we made that clear here. And it kind of got us thinking about ideas about, all right, what's going to happen, what would happen, what are the next steps, and what are the next concerns if WWE is going to go through this process? Because it wouldn't put it past me. Okay. There's been some crazy decisions made over the last decade or two from WWE, from the board of directors, from Vince McMahon, that makes you not surprised if they would go out and sell this company to Saudi Arabia, who they've had been in a deal with doing, international shows over there for the past 10 years. It wouldn't put it past me. But as of so we sat there and we kind of gave our thoughts if this is happening, if this really is happening. And I came on here and I was like, if I was wrong about anything, if I was wrong about providing any false news, this would be the one that I want. Because in reality, I don't want the WWE to go across seas. I don't know what the intentions are over there and what the company could be. And there was a lot of reports out there that would say, all right, WWE will be ran into the ground if Saudi Arabia owns it. There was a lot of bashing on that. There was even athletes coming out and saying, okay, they were already, on top of that, athletes making it clear that if Saudi Arabia, this is something, if Saudi Arabia is a buyer and they end up getting their hand to hold, there's already athletes that refuse to compete over there in shows and Crown Jewel, that you would be rightful for a lot of WWE talent to walk out. For me, though, I think that this this is all false. As of yesterday afternoon, it was confirmed that, listen, maybe a conversations, has alerted, maybe a phone call was made, throughout the time, because the process of selling, there are potential buyers, but there was nothing set in stone, or nearly clearly an inch set in stone. Probably just a conversation. That was it. Okay. WWE remains to keep their doors open, their options open to other companies. And I think for me, it was just a sign of relief. A sign of relief that I've never been so relieved that I was wrong in my life. But it was a sign of relief, a sign of take a deep breath. Nothing's going to happen tomorrow. But it also reminds you, that, hey, the truth of the matter is that, eventually the WWE will be sold. And there's a lot of legalization that goes behind it, behind closed doors. There's parts of the WWE that will be sold. There's going to still be a part of the WWE that Vince McMahon still owns and has control over. I was reading some comments yesterday on the program that was kind of enlightening me on some, like some of the process that, even if the company sold, you think about it. I don't know the financial position the WWE is in. I don't know the financial, what position the WWE is in when it comes down to talent, to marketing. Remember, this is a company that's built their product from the ground up, then they go branch out. But a relief that the WWE is not being sold, I think you could now take a step back and breathe. But I think coming up in our next segment, when we take after our first break, I do want to talk a little bit more about that, because I think although we understand that this isn't true and that this is kind of like, all right, now we can take a step back. We got to realize, you guys, that the change of professional wrestling is among us. All right, if Impact Wrestling goes out and sells their company, that's one thing. Ring of Honor last year went on a hiatus. Tony Khan bought Ring of Honor, brought back Ring of Honor, but it didn't really jump the world of professional wrestling. It was a big news. I mean, a lot of people covered it and we were a lot of questioning, but when it comes down to the WWE, when it comes down to one of the biggest entertainment, professional wrestling, sports entertainment, whatever you want to call it, entity, WWE has and probably always will be at the top. I'm sorry to disappoint only AEW fans. I'm sorry to disappoint Ring of Honor fans or New Japan fans. But at the end of the day, when the stock market closes, when when you put your head on the pillow each and every night, WWE is always going to be that at the top of the pyramid in the wrestling industry, and that's just the unfortunate news. It's nothing personal, nothing against, AEW and what AEW is doing, and they had a great product that we'll talk about last night. And it goes forth in saying that the WWE is something different. It's something different. So we'll talk a little bit more about that this morning. We'll come back. I don't want to spend too much time on it because that just that came and went. I kind of want to just touch bases and then we'll go from there. Like I mentioned, AEW Dynamite was last night. You had a couple new things happening, a return that we'll get into and we'll dive a little bit into. But today's main focus over the next 48 hours in this today's program and in tomorrow's program, I want to address and start breaking down the NFL wild card. Okay, we got 6 games over 3 days. 2 games on Saturday, 3 games on Sunday, and a Monday night game. Okay. We'll talk about the overtime rule changes in the playoffs, which are, we could finally, be excited here, and hopefully no one gets screwed out. Okay. And if there is time, I do want to make a statement on the Cincinnati Reds season. I know we're still in the off season, but I think if you are watching the offseason unfold and unravel as we get closer to spring training, as we get closer to pitchers and catchers we're reporting, and then we're also as we get closer to the opening day, we can't bypass what the Reds have not done this offseason. And to be honest, it wonders. I mean, I know there's a solid team out here right now in Cincinnati that is playing top tier, professional sports, and that's the Bengals. But those Cincinnati Reds, man, they make you almost want to vomit. All right. So we're just getting underway here, waking up on a Thursday morning. Thank you guys everyone for tuning into the TNC Sports Talk YouTube channel. This is a throw-in. We'll take you up until 8 o'clock in the morning. We'll take a quick time out. We'll come on back and we'll start unraveling the world of sports. Thank you guys for tuning in. We'll be right back. Alrighty, welcome back here to the Throw-In on the TNC Sports Talk YouTube channel. We'd like to give a huge thank outs to StreamYard, the proud home of the Throw-In. StreamYard Studios is where you can create a podcast, create your podcast, videos, host virtual business meetings, and conduct interviews. Check out the free version today at StreamYard.com. We're waking up here. Let's get our heads right here on a Thursday morning, the second week of the new year. And it's over, it's 1 week after another week here in the world of sports. And it's really just tackling on, especially in all the coverage that we've been talking about. Especially as of late, yesterday was a big, I think a big day for our show, regardless of whether or not the statements were true or not. I think just the sight of seeing another name associated with WWE, and it's in the sentence of WWE sold, or whatever name it buys WWE, that is vague content. But I think in reality, okay, around this world, I think in reality, it puts a lot of things in perspective. So it is 2023, and I know we've had this conversation as this, the 77-year-old Vince McMahon. Now, you may have differences of opinions. I'm a huge fan of Vince McMahon. I love Vince McMahon. Everything, for what he represents, for what he has done for the company, and how big he's been able to make it. Now, listen, bypass everything that he's done outside the company or outside the ring. He's still probably one of the greatest businessman alive moving forward. And so, the controversy, the dilemma here is that, when this investigation happened, when he was accused of, when he was being investigated for sexual misconduct, saying that he paid out employees, and this may sound wrong, but I kind of chuckled at it. Now, at no point I'm prone and I'm favored towards any of that action being made. But it's ironic because at the end of the day, no matter what happens, the truth does come out. Right? And the truth comes out eventually. We saw Ric Flair and the flight attendant incident, and at some point that started, kind of tarnishing his career, tarnishing his legacy that he's left behind. And this is exactly what we're seeing here, these misconducts. And even though he's not, and that's one thing that I've learned, is that even though you are not proven guilty or non-guilty, just because you're not, legally proven that you committed these heinous acts, doesn't mean that you're not guilty. We've seen that in Trevor Bauer and back in baseball a few years ago. He was proven not guilty. Doesn't mean that he hasn't done such things in the past. There just wasn't enough evidence to accuse him, or even if they have accused him and he is guilty, the punishments probably aren't that great, among others. So, I know now, in today's time, there's probably many different opinions given on Vince McMahon. But I like to try to keep a narrow focus when it comes down to Vince McMahon. And I enjoy the business aspect that he's given out. He's a very smart businessman, and he's been, there's a reason why this company is afloat for the last 30 years. It's been number one. It always has been, and it always will be moving forward, as long as the WWE is given into good hands. But I think in the harsh reality is that the WWE's future is uncertain. And the uncertainty is as they move along through the selling process, there's a lot of legal stuff that's going to go on behind the scenes. There's going to be a lot of statements, and there's going to be a lot of paperwork that we're going to try to make sense of, that I know for a fact I'm not going to be able to make sense of any of it. But for me, it's a true reality scenario that there's going to be a new image at some point, sooner than later, in the WWE. It's inevitable. It's unfortunate. I don't think anyone has ever imagined the WWE being owned by a non-McMahon family, or being, a CEO by a non-McMahon family. But I think eventually it's going to happen. When Vince McMahon came back on Friday, okay, and he announced that his part and his role is to make sure that there's a smooth process in the transition of the selling. All right. This is, you got to remember, although it's about the money, it always has been. You get X dollar amount on the table and you're going to take it. But you also have to remember that this is what he grew. Okay. He took it over from his father, who did not decide to expand. He expanded it. He created probably one of the biggest income events in the world of sports today. It is, for me, second to the Super Bowl. As a matter of fact, it's the first to the Super Bowl. WrestleMania is probably one of the biggest accomplishments or creations that Vince McMahon has ever made. Being able to have this now a week-long extravaganza. You got NXT involved. You got kicks off with Monday Night Raw the week prior. Takes you all the way through to WrestleMania. Now it's a 2-night event, a Hall of Fame ceremony, and the Monday Night Raw, even now further out to the SmackDown afterwards. And then as of, this was something I wrote down a couple of days, not yesterday. Vince McMahon comes back and things are starting to look good. Knowing that the main shareholder of the WWE, that, and there could be there's a downside to this, and I'll share here in a moment. But the stock markets, all right, stock went up $90.24. Went to $90.24 yesterday, compared to Tuesday's stock market, which was at $87. So 2.42% that it went up in one day. And you want to sell the company when it's high, right? You want to get the most out of your buck here when it's high. So, but the other bad news is that since Vince McMahon's return, there is the other WWE shareholders has filed a class action lawsuit against Vince McMahon. And it could be first of several copycat lawsuits. And it was a lawsuit against the newly reinstated executive chairman, Vince McMahon. Filed in Delaware's Chancery Court, Scott Fellows is claiming breach of fiduciary duty in line with Section 141 of the state's general corporation law, which he looks for in invalidation of the bylaw changes Vince McMahon made after returning to the board Friday, additional costs and fees. Fellows are accusing Vince McMahon of using 81% of the 81% company voting's control to remove 3 board members and replace them with his hand-picked people, in addition to pushing through the aforementioned bylaw changes that included giving McMahon's final say in the sale or media rights deal. Now, I'm not going to go sit here and dig too deep into another lawsuit, but the reality is that obviously this is long from over. And as long as Vince McMahon is sitting up at the top of the throne there, he's going to, there are going to be continuous things happening such as this, which is just unfortunate. In my opinion, fan base opinion, I would honestly like for some sort of realization saying, being said by Vince McMahon, hey, I'm getting older. I should retire. Okay, I don't know what I'm going to do with the company, and I'm going to work on trying to do what's best for the company, what's best for the talent, and what's best for the fans. Okay. But it's time for me to hang up the boots. It's time for me to really step away from the in-ring talent. And that's what he's done 8 months ago. And now it's time to come back and just do what I need to do to make things right. I'm not looking to stay here long. You know, I want to be able to take care of myself, the kids, the grandkids, etc., etc. I want to get what is worth from this company. And I want to make sure not only I get what is worth from this company, but I leave the company in good hands. For me, I will love Vince McMahon to say that. I think it's time for that realization to come forth. And maybe that is, maybe that isn't at this time. You know, Vince McMahon's always filled with surprises. But this, I think not only this is a reality futures check, you know, from what happened yesterday, it really hits you. Not just because as a fan, but I think also hits you as a talent, as a as a as a wrestler, and as a future wrestler. You know, there's been reports. You know, I know there's social media antagonists coming from Will Ospreay and Seth Rollins last couple weeks. You know, Jay White has announced that he's going to be a free agent here after the end of his contract, which both ties along to AEW and for WWE. And I will love nothing more but to see guys like Will Ospreay and Jay White, even if it's not a long-term deal, come to WWE and have a feud. Because right now, it seems like WWE has to go out to them. Shinsuke Nakamura recently at Wrestle Kingdom had to go out to Japan to compete. I would like some of those to come back in return, and to get, test the waters of WWE. But if you're an athlete right now out there looking to find a right promotion, to find the right place to make your career, you're, a couple years ago, 2 years ago, you're questioning yourself, was the WWE the right place because all the turnovers, especially with them, losing, bringing people up from NXT, losing them in the mix, and then releasing them at a later date. But today now you're asking, well, is going to the WWE appropriate, not knowing the future of the company? You don't want to go to a business or an industry not knowing what the future of the company is going to be. If they're about to sell the company in a year, you're not going to make nothing. You don't know what that's going to hold. So, there's still, I think, final statement on it to wrap it up until, more news comes away, is that we really don't quite know. Right? I'm glad, I am relieved that WWE is not being sold to Saudi Arabia, at least not as of right now. And I sure hope it doesn't. I was explaining yesterday about a business standpoint where if the WWE holds the money and or on the verge of filing for bankruptcy, and I don't know where the honest financial pursuit is, but if they were going to sell the company to Saudi Arabia to help them get out of that relief debt, and then come back and own it, and then do the negotiation process, maybe Saudi Arabia was only owning the board of directors moving forward. I don't know the ins and outs of when a deal does come afoot, what type of deal it will be. That will be fun, interesting to know, and then interesting to see the change of how the WWE will be imaged. But at the end of the day, that this is a reality check to the fans, to the talent, that, hey, something over the next few months, maybe the next year, will take in place. All right, there's been conversations already afoot about it, and we'll be talking about this as it progresses, and we will be talking about it probably a year from now. I'm like, all right, we're going to be under new management. But we'll get out of the way from WWE. AEW Dynamite last night sparked a lot of people's attention, and we will explain all about that and more still to come, taking you guys up until 8 a.m. in the morning on a Thursday. You are listening to the Throw In with Justin. That's me, right here on the TNC Sports Talk YouTube channel. Alrighty. I was just trying to see if I could do something really fast. 6:44 here on the Throw-In Thursday morning. Thank you guys for tuning in. I'd like to give a shout out to Epidemic Sound. Ray of Light by Duckmaw. Available on epidemicsound.com. Discover your world-class artists, composers, and bands. Find the perfect soundtrack and give your social media accounts the music they deserve. Epidemic Sound is a royalty-free music link. For more information, check out epidemicsound.com. Spread out those promotions previously. All right, so we are underway, moving forward to this weekend, Friday the 13th, which is tomorrow. Impact Wrestling's first big event of the year, Hard to Kill, getting things going for the 2023 year, taking place in Atlanta, Georgia, tomorrow at 7 p.m. start time. Fight TV, it will be available. Got a couple of things like Bully Ray taking on Josh Alexander for the Impact World Championship in a Full Metal Mayhem. That's going to be exciting to watch. Impact Knockout Women's Championship match. Fatal 4-way now or one-on-one match. Jordan Gracie. Sorry, I was reading the wrong thing. Taking on Mickie James. And if Mickie loses, she retires, which is also another big thing. I remember a year ago, Mickie James, as Knockout Women's Champion herself, making the Royal Rumble entrance. If she loses tomorrow night, she will be forced to retire. Impact Tag Team Championship, Motor City Machine Gun taking on Chris Bay and Ace Austin, taking on Major Players and Heath Miller and Rhino. It's an elimination match and much more still to come. We'll kind of briefly discuss those matches tomorrow as Hard to Kill for Impact Wrestling. Probably one of the biggest, you think of Bound for Glory and Slammiversary and all that fun stuff, but Hard to Kill kicks off and sets the stepping stone for Impact Wrestling. And one thing that I will say about Impact Wrestling, Impact Wrestling does not get a lot of credit on this show, on this program. And it's one of the things I will say about one of these smaller companies that don't have mega, TV time or the mega channels, is that it's difficult. I speak to you as a regular fan, as a regular impactful fan that is wanting to talk about all sorts of things of wrestling. We want to talk about AAA. We want to talk about Lucha Underground. We want to talk about New Japan Pro Wrestling, AEW, Ring of Honor, Impact Wrestling, NWA, WWE, NWF, which is even locally around here. The problem that you run into talking about these type of things is, I'm only access to so much unlimited, things before I get cut off. When you look at, like I said, we go back to sources. All right. PW Insider is a liable wrestling source that I go to get all the news and updates. Now, they have stories left and right. Okay. And they're pretty accurate and they keep up to date, right, with the wrestling news and the wrestling world. So being able to have some sort of sources, I see MGW on there, but there's the other thing is that WWE is on TV, USA Network and Fox. AEW is on TBS and TNT. yes, you will see Ring of Honor once in a while. You will see Impact Wrestling. Impact Wrestling on Access TV. I don't get Access TV. Most companies or most televisions, cable companies don't get Access TV. Believe it or not. And on top of that, I don't have a cable company. I have Hulu. I used to have Sling TV. I got Hulu over a year ago, and it's much cheaper, much more affordable. And so as this new, and instead of buying all these subscriptions, because that's what NFL is doing, that's what Major League Baseball is doing, is making you buy subscriptions in order to watch these games now, which I think is unbelievably ridiculous. Like, I can't watch the Cincinnati Reds because they're on Valley Sports. The problem is with Valley Sports is that you don't get that on Hulu. So therefore, you have to buy the MLB, TV, which then you get you don't get your out of market game. You get out of market games. You don't get your local, Reds game, even if they're on the road on the West Coast, because they play here locally. One thing that killed me on Thursday Night Football. I love Thursday Night Football, but it's on Amazon. I'm not gonna go buy Amazon TV or Apple TV, for baseball to watch baseball games. It's frustrating. But anyways, when getting back to it, Impact Wrestling is not on your everyday channel, so it's a little bit more difficult to follow because I can't go put on a recording, therefore I can't watch it, and I'm not gonna go hackle 20, 30 different people trying to find Impact Wrestling just for 1 or 2 hours a week. So Hard to Kill, if you guys are looking to watch it, I recommend watching it. It is a event to get everyone ready for next, for the year of what 2023 is to come. Also coming out of that, some news is that Raven, all right, former WWE, former WCW, former ECW, former TNA/Impact superstar Raven is to return to Hard to Kill this weekend. But we had a pretty good lineup last night talking about AEW Dynamite. Compared to last week, didn't quite kick off the year. AEW has not kicked off the year with that bang like it was last week. Maybe the storylines are telling did a little differently. I don't know. Okay. Going back to the whole MJF and Bryan Danielson, all right, scenario. All right, they're doing a feud, and I'm gonna be honest. I haven't been following a lot since MJF won the title. I feel like it's like, yeah, he won the title, but I don't know. Now having it, I don't know if he's the right guy for the job. He fought so hard. He battled so hard. He made a lot of he had several pipe bombs leading into reasonings to become AEW champion. He put CM Punk out of his misery. He went after Jon Moxley, and he finally captured the AEW World Champion because the fans wanted them. Fans were so far behind him that they would have walked, over the cliff for him. And so why not? Why not take your hottest superstar in AEW that's making you the most money and slap that gold on him? Now, listen, maybe he has to have that title a little long. There's a little snobbiness behind it that MJF brings to me that makes this title run not really well-known press. This may be his only opportunity at the AEW World Championship. And if you want to compare his run currently right now to how maybe I say Hangman Adam Page made his run. Hangman Adam Page made the most of every match, every title defense, as if it was his last. And I feel that, maybe because of that, I was able to get behind him and I was able to be invested into every single title match Hangman had because I wanted to see how, what was next. How far could he go? when it came down to the next opponent. When it comes to MJF, okay, he's won the title. He's hold back. He's laid back. Now he really, obviously, as his character, as that heel perspective or persona, you don't want to go out and get that, face that next person right away. Matter of fact, you want them to do everything they can to earn it. That's where Bryan Danielson fits in. And another thing with MJF, and I'll leave it this because I want to talk about some other matches, is that MJF, I don't think he is at the same, as a title defense athlete, I don't think he's the same level right now than a CM Punk or a Jon Moxley or even a Hangman Page. So that allows, as I mentioned was yesterday, that allows other younger, smaller, talented, athletes to get brought up because now he's going to be facing new people. Ricky Starks, one of them. But Bryan Danielson has to win every single match leading up to his title match against MJF in February. Daniel Bryan took care of business last night, and so we move on to the next stage. A couple of things that we got the honor to see last night. Okay. Another incredible match between Jon Moxley and Hangman Page. And finally, Jon Moxley has lost a match. Not, I wouldn't say finally as in, okay, this is a good thing. I wouldn't go as far as that, losing to Hangman Page is a good thing. But I want you guys to remind you on something. All right. And tell me, you guys could yell at me if I'm wrong, if you guys think I'm wrong. I think whenever Hangman and Moxley steps into the ring, Hangman is always underneath Moxley. And Hangman is always looking up at Moxley. And Moxley's always trying to take him to the next level. Right? Hangman is trying to get one up on Moxley. And last night he was able to do it, picking up the victory. Jon Moxley has not lost in AEW for the first time in 17 months. That is that is an impressive streak. I will admit that. 17 months of not losing in AEW, and you lose it to Hangman Page. Now, for me, this is much more significant for Hangman Page, and that's when he needs now more momentum. Also who needs more momentum, all right, who's getting their shot at early on in this year, and that's the Elite. Elite, the Young Bucks and Kenny Omega goes on and defeat Death Triangle in the Best of 7 series that ended, that all came to an end last night, and they become, they went back to the trio titles that they never even lost to begin with. And I think this is a great start. Now you look at Kenny Omega on another note, right? A guy who's gone on to Wrestle Kingdom, competed at Wrestle Kingdom, and won at Wrestle Kingdom. He's getting off to a good year, and I've recommended, after everything that's unfolded in 2022, everything with the company and all, I think it was just 2 years ago, Kenny Omega was the number one on the PW's Insider Top 100 list. And I think that's what, I think he needs to get back up to that level once again. Last but not least, before we turn off the hour number 1 here, is the return of Adam Cole. Adam Cole comes back. He makes a statement that he puts the entire roster on notice, saying that this is going to be a completely new him. You sure miss things when they're finally gone. I think you don't realize, and then they come back. Adam Cole's going to be a great opponent for MJF. Could be a great opponent for MJF. I'm just thinking of opponents that MJF could kind of mix for. It's going to be also, I think, trying to figure out, there's so much talent. Tony Khan, there was a statement that Tony Khan made a couple of days ago saying that we have the talent. Fans want us to expand. Fans want us to travel and go to their location. And they've been expanding that over the last couple years. Well, it continues. Tony Khan says, well, now with the large roster that we have, we are capable of expanding to your area, which I think is great. AEW was kind of at a halt a little bit last year, kind of in a stalemate position. And now they get the chance with the roster, and that's what you need. You need to be able to break off. I think that AEW eventually over the next year or so, especially if they're going the way that they're still going, that they need to start breaking off and considering moving beyond just AEW Dynamite and Rampage. Maybe make that more of a I would almost say separate rosters. That way you're able to highlight. Because one thing I think, and we'll cut to break. One thing I think with AEW, the problem is that their roster is so large, they don't have enough room for everybody to excel. You've seen a lot of talent that came over from WWE over to AEW or another promotion over to AEW. They get that warm welcome like everyone does, and then they get lost down in the tracks. And then they have to find and claw their way back up to the top. So we'll see. Unfolds, unravels. All right, our number one is complete. We'll come back and talk some more. We'll talk about some NFL football here on our number two. Take you guys up until 8. Thank you guys for tuning in to the Throne with Justin right here on the TNC Sports Talk YouTube channel. All right, number two here on the throw-in is given to you thanks to Spreaker. If you guys miss any episodes on YouTube or Twitter, got to take us on the road and want to listen to us, don't forget to download us and on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spreaker, iHeartRadio, Spotify, and anywhere you listen to audio services. Download us, the throw-in, today. And I want to give a big shout out to Armchair Booking, specifically Steve Barber over there on Armchair Booking, who has introduced us to Spreaker, and ever since then, Spreakers have kind of been a really useful product in our being, because they allow us to do a little bit more with our podcast. Now it's just you don't get if you don't get the podcast that same day, okay, don't worry. There will be a podcast. It's just, posted. It should ends up happening. It's a process after the show doing it. And, I'm not sitting here complaining, this is all the work that you do on the outside of the program, but, just sit tight, hang in with us here. All right, let's take a look around the world of, let's take a look inside the sports of Cincinnati here as we end off another day and we get ready for today. Yesterday, East Carolina, Cincinnati Bearcats men's basketball went up and did match up a pretty fair game. Nola Landers put up 20 points in Cincinnati's victory, 83-55. Cincinnati moves to 12-6. They'll be playing this Saturday at 4 p.m. at SMU for men's basketball in Cincinnati for the Bearcats. Louisville, as I mentioned, got clobbered last night against Clemson, 83-70. Okay. Let me rephrase it, because it wasn't a clobber game compared to Cincinnati and East Carolina's final score, but I think it was predicted well in advance who was going to walk away with that game. So the Louisville Cardinals moved to 2-15 on the season. They'll be playing against North Carolina at 2 p.m. this coming up Saturday. Over in AHL, the hockey, Cincinnati Cyclones welcomed the Walleyes in last night. It was t-shirt giveaway, also $2 draft beers. The Wallies went away with this game. They've kind of been handling business against the Cyclones. 2-1 was a final score. They would go on the Cyclones will go on and face the Fuels Friday night at 7:30. There will be Dragonfly Foundation night. Special jerseys made for the Cyclones. Um, and I love those type of nights. They do that. They do it all the time. So if you guys are still looking to get tickets, they're home. They're available. A fun environment to kick off the weekend tomorrow night at the Heritage Bank Arena. Also, we got coming in off tonight more men's basketball. 6:30 p.m. tip off. Ohio State welcomes Minnesota in a matchup there tonight for the Buckeyes. So if you're looking for the basketball tonight, that's what you're looking at as well. We'll get you into the weekend sports and much more to come over the weekend tomorrow. Man, I think this is kind of, for me, the perfect time to kind of get a chance to have a conversation with you guys. We talk about a lot of sports, and Cincinnati Bengals, especially we try to cover local Cincinnati sports here, and the Bengals are obviously a team that is, excelling at their expectations. At the beginning of the season, the last thing I wanted them to do was kind of get too cocky, too big for their bridges in a sense. And maybe the first half of the season showed that they were 0-2 to 4-4, couldn't get themselves on the right track. And one of the biggest concerns going into the season was some offensive line. They picked them up, didn't work. Now they're starting to protect, and now we're heading into the wild card, game against the Ravens, which we'll talk about here later on this hour. Cincinnati Bengals are doing great, but what are the Cincinnati Reds doing? There's only two major league professional sports here besides soccer, okay, in Cincinnati. And, as we are in January, and yeah, we can sit here and talk all we want about basketball and football. We have, we also should be updating and following up with the Cincinnati Reds. And right now it's kind of difficult to do so because there's not a lot of news coming out of baseball that involves the Reds other than maybe wheeling and dealing players again. Last year was probably a year that Reds fans would like to forget. Yes, the Reds finished off at playing 500 baseball. And a matter of fact, the Reds were finished off the entire season. They weren't playing too bad. They were playing about 500 baseball. It was the terrible start in the month of April that they just could not catch up on. We had to address, heading into the offseason, some concerns, some issues that we've had, and more at bats and more pitching. They unloaded the roster and the rotation, and they had a substantial amount of injuries in the bullpen. Okay, and those were the key things that I think the Reds needed to address this offseason. And to be honest, there's not a lot that the Reds can show for as of today. They picked up Will Myers for an outfield, and following Will Myers and his career, because I used to live in San Diego, and Will Myers played nearly for a decade in San Diego with the Padres. The Reds pick him up on a 1-year contract, getting closer to home and playing in a different environment, hopefully to spark some sort of excitement out of the fans. But he's not no Nick Castellanos. He's not no Jesse Winker. And maybe a new scenery is what's needed for Will Myers. Now, I'm a Will Myers fan. I'm excited that Will Myers has given the Reds an opportunity. I mean, if any team deserves to pick him up. But I just, there was a lot of questions about his health in San Diego. There was a lot of questions about what he's capable of doing. Now, I will go on to defend Will Myers as, hey, he could play every day in the outfield. He could also be a designated hitter. And he can also play first base. He could give Joey Votto some time off if he's needed. So he's a versatile player, that's up in his age. That's probably batting around, I say, about 240 at best. All right, they could give you, maybe a solid 2/3 of a season when he's healthy. Okay. Contribute, maybe he'll definitely contribute in some new wins. He'll get some new sceneries. He likes to strike out a lot. Okay, he's a big guy who strikes out. He'll strike out looking too. Okay, unfortunately, he's not going to go down swinging. He's going to go down looking most of the time. Nothing against Will Myers, but the concern is that he's not going to play well against. He's not going to bat well against left-handed batters. That's just unfortunately that's just how the last couple years have been. Now, hey, I sure hope that he comes in to this season. I sure hope that he comes in to this season and gives the Reds something to cheer for. He's a good addition. He's a better addition than what I think some of the players that's on the roster today. But unfortunately, I don't know how much more advantage does that give the Reds with Will Myers. Got Austin Romine returning back to Cincinnati from playing in San Francisco. Okay, back up to Tyler Stevenson. We're hoping that what we're hoping Cincinnati would do, and most likely this is what we'll see, is that back and forth between Tyler Stevenson playing catcher, playing first base, and playing DH. You want to keep the guy healthy because you need that big at bat in that lineup each and every day, especially if you want the ball club to win. So, in a sense, the Reds have slowly made improvements. Nothing too significant, but slowly made improvements to their roster. And oh, by the way, they went ahead and, DFA'd Mike Moustakas, which I think is probably the better decision than to keep him, because there was really no role that he was playing in this roster. He was always hurt. He was injury prone. And it was probably an utter fail. Like I gave Mike Moustakas an opportunity. I gave him a shot. I was on his side. I thought that was a decent pickup. A lot of people didn't, and they proved me wrong. I was wrong, and this decision. He did not turn out good whatsoever. Unfortunately, I mean that's just the unfortunate news that happens and breaks out. It's a give and take among every player, but overall, the Reds haven't really done nothing this offseason that's worthwhile or even worth a conversation. I mean, to be honest, it's really sickening. You have an opportunity to kind of pick up some players and really develop. But right now, you really need what you're missing. What the Reds are missing are those one or two, starting pitchers out of the rotation that can help. Everyone's young. Everyone is a young kid, other than Luis Cessa, coming up, learning how to pitch in the major leagues. They're just being thrown into the fire. And you're learning the hard way when you throw a rookie in without the guidance, without the backup. You don't have the pitching staff or coaches to really develop them, because honestly, name me a pitching coach that's better than Ruben Niebla over there in San Diego. You don't have anyone right now that is being developed other than go out there, pitch 6-7 innings, and let's win a ball game. It doesn't work that way. They don't have nobody in the bullpen that you can rely on or go to. That was a struggle last year. You didn't know what type of outings you were going to get from Hunter Green each and every day. With the amount of injuries that the rotation had and that bullpen had, you didn't know what type of outings you were going to get. Not only on top of outings, but you didn't know that you didn't know when not everyone was injured, and on top of what type of outings the pitchers were going to get, you didn't know what you were going to receive out of your bullpen. And so, although a starting pitcher could give up 3 runs, which I feel if you're pitching 5-6 innings, you're entitled to giving up 2 to 4 runs a game. I'm given that your offense actually performs. Well, then, you're in a game, it's 4-3 in the 7th inning. You go to your bullpen and your bullpen gives up 6 runs in the 7th, and you're right back down to square one. I think what's frustrating right now, okay, the Reds talk highly about their farm system, and they strongly believe that they're going to win. They're going to win through their farm system. I mean, and I don't quite see that. That's not baseball today. I have not seen maybe the Houston Astros, but I have not seen any ball club win through their farm system. San Diego Padres are not winning through their farm system. And what I mean by that is that when I mention that is that the Padres have a good farm system and they've developed their guys. Then they traded them to get players to win ball games instead of building them up through the farm system and relying on the farm system and the players that you have at a low income to help you win a World Series. Now, while we sit here and we try to just twiddle our thumbs trying to figure out what are the Cincinnati Reds going to do this offseason, what are the next moves, well, we're seeing wheeling and dealing. Carlos Correa just signs another big contract with Houston to stay in Houston. Nelson Cruz is jumping over to San Diego to play for the Padres. Johnny Cueto has decided to play for Miami Marlins. I mean, and then you dive into what are they doing inside our division. Wilson Contreras went to St. Louis. All right. Eric Hosmer's gone to Chicago. I mean, they're making deals, both the Cubs and the Cardinals, as far as right now I'm aware of. That I'm not really looking too far into it because we still have a little bit of ways to go, and football right now is taking a priority. But as of right now, who's making a bigger splash in the AL Central or NL National League Central? Sorry. That is the St. Louis Cardinals and the Chicago Cubs. They're doing things to make them better. They're jumping on players now instead of waiting until the week into spring training to decide, all right, let me pick up this free agent because he's cheap. Teams who pick up free agencies because they're cheap in the middle of spring training is to find that last final spot for their roster. Players like the Reds who pick up free agencies in the middle of spring training are trying to find guys to fill the emptiness of their roster with veterans. But those guys aren't going to carry you through the year. Those guys aren't going to bring you a playoff run. Those guys are not going to bring you a World Series. So we sit here today and, we talk about Cincinnati Reds baseball, and I know it's probably disgusting to talk about, and it's kind of heartbreaking to talk about because as a Bengals team in Cincinnati is looking to go back to the Super Bowl this month, and it starts this Sunday night against the Baltimore Ravens, we have to sit here, twiddle our thumbs, wondering what in the world are the Reds are trying to do. And we know what they're not trying to do because they haven't picked up really significant any players. And they're not addressing the problems that they have. And so I think at sometime next week, we should sit down and have that conversation. What are the problems that the Reds are having? Where do they need to fix out? And that's something that I'll put together and we'll figure something out. All right, 7:20. Let's step aside and let's talk about some of these wild card games because, man, 6 games among 3 days. 2 of them Saturday, 3 of them Sunday, 1 of them Monday, and 3 of the 6 games, divisional titles. The Throw-In with Justin returns here on the TNC Sports Talk YouTube channel. Alrighty, I want to just remind you guys to check out Steve Barber, Dwaylen Davis as they break down wrestling news and highlights of professional wrestling. Armchair Booking Podcast is a weekly wrestling podcast found on YouTube and all audio streaming platforms. Go check them out today at Armchair Booking Podcast. The latest episode was about a day ago. Why are we fans? With crew Randy. Go check out their interview with Randy at Armchair Booking Wrestling Podcast. Great group of guys there. Everything that's going on over there, to highly recommend checking them out moving forward. Got some lightning and thunders in the local areas. Kind of like to just enjoy sometimes. I love a good thunderstorm. I really do. I will say that. I mean, so 2 breaks ago, I was actually hearing the winds blowing and the gushing of the winds and everything. And I was like, is it raining? Is it thundering? I didn't know. I didn't check the forecast waking up this morning. So I decided during not this past break, but the break prior, to actually open up the window, and yep, it's raining. And I kind of like to listen to it. I mean, I don't want to, I just, coming back from break, just saw that flash of lightning and hearing that thunder. And what's worse about that is it could very well affect the streaming services that we provide here this morning. But NFL is, we move forward and get to listen to that in the background. All right, the NFL playoffs are in place, you guys. We got 6 games over 3 days, and that's this is what it's actually all about, to be honest. I mean, a full weekend of playoffs starting on Saturday. You got kicking off at 4:30 p.m. Seattle Seahawks and the San Francisco 49ers in that game over there. Now, listen, this game here, one of 3 divisional games that will be being played. Then Saturday night at 8:15, you got the Los Angeles Chargers taking on the Jacksonville Jaguars. And head over to Sunday, where we got a triple header for you guys. Miami Dolphins taking on Buffalo Bills at 1 p.m. Another divisional game. 4:30, New York Giants taking on Minnesota Vikings. At 8:15 will be the Baltimore Ravens and Cincinnati Bengals Part 2 as they play back-to-back weekends. And then Monday Night Football, which is a rarity on a playoff caliber night. You got the Dallas Cowboys taking on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Now, a lot of people are saying that, hey, Cowboys can finally beat the Buccaneers. Tom Brady is undefeated in the postseason against, or undefeated against Dallas overall. There's a lot of questions and concerns coming out into the playoffs. Things like quarterback-wise, because Tua Tagovailoa in Miami is not ready, will be ruled out of Sunday's game. Lamar Jackson is going to also, right now, is highly doubtable for Sunday's night game. So that means you're going to have Anthony Brown at quarterback again. And we'll talk a little bit more about that in a second. And then Brock Purdy, who is filling in some big shoes after not 1, but 2 starting quarterbacks go out for San Francisco. So he's going to have to he's being relied upon carrying the 49ers to the divisional weekend. As a team like Seattle, like Geno Smith, who was not expected or not predicted whatsoever to be in the postseason, is gonna get their opportunity also. And I think the further that Seattle goes, further that Geno Smith goes, it just, I think, illustrates what type of coach Pete Carroll is. I think one of the big questions coming into the season, one of the big questions coming into the whole deal between, the deal that sent Russell Wilson off to Denver. And obviously we know the outcome of that. And then we saw the deal that sent Geno Smith to Seattle. And now Seattle had, Pete Carroll had to deal with Geno Smith. And no one, not me, no one's said, hey, that Seattle, Pete Carroll, Geno Smith had what it take to make it that far into the AFC West. I mean, I guess yet again, we all thought that Kyle Murray and the Arizona Cardinals would have been much more of a challenge, which look where they were at. And then we expected that the 49ers would have made it back to the postseason, and they barely got away with not even 5 wins. They kind of tanked. Expected. But in all sadness, before we get into any games, we have to talk about, have to illuminate ourselves about the new playoff rule that is going to be in place thanks to the Bills and the Chiefs divisional game last year. And, thanks to the overtime rule where Kansas City got the ball, they ran down the field and Mahomes scored a touchdown. Didn't give a very good ball game, did not give the Bills an opportunity or Josh Allen an opportunity, which, by the way, let's remind you that the last 2 weeks of that game, or the last 2 minutes of that game, stop getting confused here. The last 2 minutes of that game was a throwdown back and forth. So with that being said, the new playoff rule is that if the game goes into overtime, okay, both teams will have will get an opportunity at one possession of the ball. That means if sometime, let's just take, for example, the Seahawks and the 49ers game. If they, at the end of the 4 quarters, they're tied at 13 apiece, okay, they will go on. They'll do the coin flip in overtime. And if let's say Seattle wins the coin toss and they choose to receive the ball and Geno Smith runs down the field and scores a touchdown, well, guess what? San Francisco would get that opportunity to score a touchdown also. And if they fail, Seattle wins. If they score, they'll just keep on playing until someone wins. So the rules are very much similar, other than the guarantee that both teams will have possession of the football going into the overtime. And I like it. More competitiveness. I think it brings another strategic side of the coin flip, especially when it comes down to overtime in that scenario. So that's the new updated rule for the NFL in this year's playoffs. I think one thing we want to start visiting here before we get to another break is the Cincinnati Bengals and the Baltimore Ravens. At which point they'll be facing again in a second match. All right. The first game, the Bengals won 27-16, and it looked like the Bengals, they were just twice as better as the Ravens appear to be. Okay. The Ravens back on Sunday, they struggled of obtaining the football. They struggled catching it, ball control. There was just a lot of mistakes, a lot of fumbles, and that really what hurt, because it hurt the Ravens and helped the Bengals win because they were able to capitalize. Obviously, a football game is going to come down to the least amount of mistakes that a team's made. But one of the biggest questions / controversy heading into this wildcard game, because last week we didn't see all the Ravens starters. Last week we didn't see Lamar Jackson, and there's a lot of unclarity of what the status is of Lamar Jackson is going to be. And, he's yet again missed another practice, okay? And we now reach a little bit closer to to Sunday Night Football, where they will meet again. And you wonder, one, will you see Lamar Jackson? Will he be healthy enough? And not only if he will be healthy enough, is that will he even attempt to suit up and try to get in there, even if he's not maybe throwing the football, maybe he's running the ball, maybe he's a diversion. He's going to want to be a part of this game, a part of this hopefully win that the Ravens are looking for. And knowing that the struggles that the Ravens had last week, there's a little bit of housework you got to do, a little bit of cleanup that you have to do. And I think that's one of the biggest disadvantages for the Bengals. These two teams have already saw each other, but I don't think that the Ravens displayed their best football on the field. There's a lot of mistakes that the Ravens made. I think there are simple mistakes that they should be able to fix. And now you're asking the Bengals to once again overcome that. Now they've done it once. Can they do it again in back-to-back weeks? So as we dive more into it, I'm a little worried. I'm concerned. I'm worried. I'm optimistic about this. I want the Bengals to win. But I think this is it's one of those scenarios where, until you see who's playing on Sunday night and, you see who's healthy and who not, because the Bengals came in week 18. Yeah, they wanted to win. Yeah, they won the division title a couple days prior to that, but they didn't feel like they won anything until picking up the victory against the Ravens last Sunday. Yeah, they wanted to end the game off heading into some big momentum going into, the wild card weekend. But you wonder, all good things come to an end at some point. I mean, last year the Bengals, went through the wild card divisional conference, went to the Super Bowl, and all good things came to an end. And the last thing you want, in my opinion, you get nervous because you're worried about does all good things come to an end this Sunday, depending on how the Ravens play and put players out on the field. We got more football to talk about. Don't go nowhere. We'll be right back. You guys are listening to The Throw-In right here on the TNC Sports Talk YouTube channel.
Sometimes we act like a fool, not aware we're troublemakers. Sometimes we try to be cool, not being givers, only takers. Stop for a minute, stop and breathe for a minute. Don't get over your head, try to listen instead, won't you?
7:40 here, taking you guys up until 8 o'clock on the TNC Sports Talk YouTube channel. And this is the AFC NFC playoff bracket that we see here available, given the 6 teams, the 6 games that are expected to be played this weekend throughout 3 days. 3 of the 6 games are divisional rivalries. You got the Bengals and the Ravens, the Bills and the Dolphins, and the 49ers and the Seahawks. Like I mentioned, a lot of people didn't quite expect maybe the Seahawks to perform as well as they did. And a turn of events, you have to also thank the Detroit Lions that without their victory, Pete Carroll may have not even gotten a chance to get a playoff opportunity this year. But a lot of teams are doing things without starting quarterbacks, such as the Miami Dolphins. They're back on third-string quarterbacks because no Tua Tagovailoa. He's ruled out again, not healthy enough to return to the field, and that's a smart decision. As much as we do want to see Tua, and there was a possibility that we could have saw Tua back on the field this weekend against the Bills, it is important to remember that, throughout the entire season, he's been dealing with concussions and injuries. This was probably one of the better decisions that the Dolphins are making, and they're being forced to make it. I don't think that Miami wants to go into the position facing as a dangerous team as the Buffalo Bills, who have the second seed in the AFC. They don't want to have to face the Bills, Josh Allen, a team that has a little bit more to fight for now, especially with what happened with Damar Hamlin a couple weeks ago. That's going to be a concern. Also, we take a look at other teams such as the Baltimore Ravens, who Lamar Jackson most likely will not be competing. They are in fear of not competing. My biggest fear is you come Sunday, you even come Saturday, when they have to report their roster and you see the Ravens throw in Lamar Jackson, whether he's 100% or he's not, and that's going to change the entire game plan. We don't know what type of Lamar Jackson we're going to see. We're going to see the playoff caliber Lamar Jackson to his finest, or we will see him choke. The last thing we want is some sort of twist and turn to the AFC Championship game or the AFC wildcard game. A couple other games going on in the NFL this week in the wildcard weekend. We're just going to bypass through. We're not going to talk about getting details about every single team, about every single game. But I'm going to be honest with you, when it comes down to the Ravens and the Bengals, we'll talk heavily about that. I like this matchup. I'm concerned about this matchup. This is what makes this game so intense and very entertaining come Sunday. And we could see two type of games. We could see a game where it's being outblown by one team, probably most likely if any team is going to outblow the other, that's going to be the Cincinnati Bengals outblowing the Ravens. And I'm sure Bengals fans will love to see that happen back to back. But we're also saying this could be a very close game depending on who's on the field, if they can fix those mistakes moving forward. So what do you do? Okay, let's take a look into Sunday. Let's dive into Sunday first. Seattle and San Francisco. Right? This is a game that, we already talked about Brock Purdy yesterday. Talked about how he's had to fill in some big shoes while both of the starting quarterbacks for San Francisco has been out. We're talking about getting that opportunity to make a name for yourself as a backup quarterback in the postseason. Now, out of the backup quarterbacks that we see, Brock Purdy's third string. There are 3 teams right now that are playing backups as of today. Baltimore, Miami, San Francisco. And yet San Francisco, in my opinion, has a better chance at advancing. They have the it factor. They have the total package. It's about executing. They have home field advantage. It's going to also be filled with a bunch of Seahawks fans, not that far away from Seattle. So, Seattle, San Francisco. I like the favor of San Francisco heading into this game. I like them on day 1, and I like them on day 9, day 5. I'm going to vote for Brock Purdy to come in and take care of business against Geno Smith and Pete Carroll. Now, like I said, give credit where credit is due. Let's not decredit the Seahawks and Pete Carroll and what they've been able to accomplish this season, especially dealing with the controversy and the aftermath of the departure of Russell Wilson. Because it's a clear note now that it's not the Seattle Seahawks. It's a clear note now that it was Russell Wilson. Okay, it's not Pete Carroll. It's not the Seahawks. It's Russell Wilson. And without Russell Wilson, they look like they're doing just fine. Now, yes, you give a lot of credit to the Detroit Lions. I mentioned that over a few minutes ago. They beat the Packers. Packers had to win out in order to, clinch the 7th seed. Seattle took their faith in their hands and they did what they could do, which was win the ball game. And now they look to face San Francisco, and the winner goes on. It could be Seattle could be going on and facing the Eagles next weekend, or San Francisco could go on awaiting their next opponent with the second lowest seed. I'm favoring San Francisco in this matchup. And by the way, tune us in right here on the TNC Sports Talk. All right, drum roll here, because we will be calling that game. I will be providing you a play-by-play action between the Seahawks and the 49ers this coming Sunday. Yeah. So tune us in this coming Saturday, 4:30 p.m. or 4 o'clock p.m. to get you guys ready for some wild card football. We'll cover, as of right now, I can confirm the Seahawks and the 49ers will be play-by-play commentary will be provided to you by me this coming up Saturday. And I'm choosing the San Francisco 49ers to pick the ball game. Sure hope I'm not wrong on that one here. We also got that doubleheader that Saturday night between the Los Angeles Chargers and the Jacksonville Jaguars. It will be Justin Herbert taking on Trevor Lawrence. Now, I mean, I don't know about you, but I always love when new teams appear in the playoffs. Okay, as much as I love Buffalo, as much as I love Kansas City, you know what I'll say? As much as I love Tom Brady and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, as much as I love the Dallas Cowboys, I'm more excited to see Miami have a shot at the Super Bowl in the playoffs. I'm going to love watching the New York Giants, the Minnesota Vikings, and now the Jacksonville Jaguars, just because this is, you don't know what's going to happen. You don't know what type of outcome is going to happen. The Philadelphia Eagles was dominant all season long up until they showed some crack in the armor. And now now you're not confident in the divisional game, whoever has to face the Eagles. Jacksonville, Trevor Lawrence, I said at the beginning of the year, and I think there's plenty of others that said this before, that Jacksonville and Trevor Lawrence, specifically Trevor Lawrence, has had to find his way this year. That if he was going to be anything more than a top-tier quarterback in the NFL, he would have to make a statement this year. And I'm not saying that Trevor Lawrence is a top-tier quarterback quite yet. He has a little bit more work to do. Because the way that the Jaguars captured the AFC South wasn't a wall, wasn't door opening entry. They were 4-8, and they had to win out. Tennessee made a lot of mistakes on their behalf. Okay, Tennessee made a lot of mistakes on their behalf for Jacksonville to do right. Yeah, I mean, listen, Jacksonville had to win out. Jacksonville had to win their games. They had to win their opportunities, and they did. But they also relied on Tennessee to fall apart. And that's what Tennessee did this season. They fell apart. Jacksonville, came in, took care of business. And when the game was meant the most, Trevor Lawrence took it upon himself to capture and to gather his team together and to overcome those obstacles. And we talked about that last week, right here on the program. We talked about that representing Tom Brady and the Buccaneers, how they took matters in their own hands, and Tom Brady performed when he needed to perform. That's why when you get to Tampa Bay and Dallas on Monday night, when we get to that, it's going to be hard to vote against Tom Brady. Who votes against Tom Brady in the playoffs? Aaron Rodgers, we mentioned that, because they had to win out. And he went on this nice miracle stretch with the Packers leading up until the last and final week, where it wasn't Aaron Rodgers who lost the game. It was the Lions who got the extra first down. That was capable of getting that first down, capturing that win. Lions ruined Green Bay's playoff hope. But here's the thing. There's a lot of momentum going into the postseason. There's a lot of momentum for Jacksonville, and there's a lot of momentum for the Chargers. And for the Chargers, one thing that we've run into that there is a concern for is there's no Joey Bosa playing, unfortunately. Hold on one second. I apologize. You guys got to realize, unfortunately, kind of a moment. I'm getting a text because right after this program, I'm taking my, school, my daughters to school, but it's piss pouring rain outside. So there's some other plans made. And on top of that, it's so early in the morning. Everything beyond my lights is pitch dark. So, there are people going to school here and leaving. But and I hear some ruckus at the door. They left like 15 minutes ago. There's some ruckus at the door. And I'm like, okay, who is that? What's going on? People just walking in my place. I don't know what's going on ahead of me because it's so dark. It's so dark that I don't know what's going on ahead of me. So I apologize there. But yeah. All right. So let's get back on track. Let's wrap up this show by saying Jacksonville Jaguars and the Chargers. A lot of people are going for the Jaguars, I think, on this case. I would like to see Jacksonville win. This is going to be a big game, a big statement for, I don't know, because the Chargers didn't make it last year. Chargers make it this year. First time in a while that the Chargers made it to the postseason. And Justin Herbert, the Chargers, they're playing on the road. I don't quite have enough belief in them. I want them to succeed. A lot of people talk about how Justin Herbert and the Chargers are just as good as Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs. A lot of people talk about how good the Chargers are, comparing them to the Cincinnati Bengals, but I don't quite see that yet. I don't know if they need a playoff run in order to dictate that success. So when you come down to this Saturday night game, Chargers and Jaguars, well, I'm thinking, all right, who needs it the most? It's not the end of the world if the Chargers get eliminated, although I would like to see the Chargers advance. Yes. But Trevor Lawrence, on this hand, he needs it more. Does he not? I mean, this is an individual that by honest opinion, I have first put him down. When he got drafted, I said, he's not going to be, I don't feel it from him. There's not that spark. For me, he doesn't have that it factor. And this year alone, when I told everyone that he needed to step up and when he needed to actually accomplish and capture the AFC South, he needed to do a lot more than what he did last year. And he's done so. Took him the team to the postseason. I think, isn't that good enough? No, I think he needs to go one more above and taking it to the divisional game. And that's what's so fun about some of these new faces, Chargers and Jaguars. You really don't know who's going to be on the other side. Giants and Vikings, you really don't know. We'll talk more about that game tomorrow. But you really don't know what side you want to choose from, because although the Vikings are good and the Vikings will have home field advantage, the Vikings have kind of been sloppy the last couple of weeks. Vikings have kind of, hey, we won our games to get into the postseason. Let's kind of now just sit back and relax. Now they could come out fire blazing, but the Giants are also trying to do the same thing, and they're just as good on the road as they are at home. So if I picked the Seahawks for Saturday over the 49ers on Saturday over the Seahawks. I'm going to go ahead and choose the Jacksonville Jaguars going to upset the Chargers and last one more day in the AFC in the wild card series. Now you got to remember, this is a 5 and 4 seed here. So that's my bold prediction. Those are my Saturday's predictions. I'm going to wait off until tomorrow morning when I come back and wrap up the week to give you Miami, Buffalo, Giants and Vikings, and Ravens and Cincinnati. All I will say, if you are Cincinnati and you're looking now toward, because it's Thursday, tomorrow's Friday, you kind of want to get an idea who's going to be there and who's going to talk about, who's going to show up, and are the Ravens are going to fix their mistakes. That's going to, those are the big key questions that you have going into this game. I'm a little bit concerned. My biggest question is Lamar Jackson going to be able to suit up and play this game, or is he out? Right now, it is uncertain where he stands among his health. And after seeing injuries after injuries after injuries in the NFL, I feel it's in the best interest that if Lamar Jackson is not medically cleared and he's not 100%, that he should not be able to play in the wild card game. Although things change all the time. So we'll continue talking about the NFL wild card series tomorrow. We'll get you guys for the week ready for the weekend tomorrow. Don't forget, Minnesota and Ohio State men's basketball. So we wrapped up a decent show for us. Thank you guys for tuning in. If you guys are listening to us on YouTube, hit that like, share, and subscribe button for more details. Leave comments down below. Let me know what you guys think. Weigh your thoughts and opinions in. Twitter, thank you guys for joining us. And if you guys are listening to us on any audio streaming platforms, thank you. Appreciate it. You guys downloading us each and every day. That is it for me. My name is Justin. This is The Throw-In. Thank you guys for listening to us, and we'll be back again tomorrow, Friday the 13th. You all have yourself a wonderful Thursday. Stay dry, stay warm, and be safe.